It's time. Tonight, the Nashville Predators kick off their season against the Columbus Blue Jackets in a game that will test the Predators right out of the gate. Today, we're going to tell you why Nashville can't be complacent on opening night and what it's going to take to get that first win.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy opening day for Nashville Predators fans. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this opening day of Nashville Predators hockey by shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio and Friends. I have a Thelma to my Hockey Louise.
You do. I'm Emma Lingan, and I'm an NHL reporter and host for the Hockey News.
I don't want to say it's the first day of the rest of our lives, but it feels a little bit like that, friends, as the Nashville Predators start a new season tonight. On today's show, we are going to preview the game against a very intriguing Columbus Blue Jackets team. We're going to share our keys to success for the Predators in this matchup, and we're going to talk about why getting a hot start to the season is going to be crucial for the Predators. Before we dive into all of that, I want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Emma, it's happening. I'm picturing the Michael Scott Office meme where people are running around and he's saying, it's happening. Finally. And it's not even for me so much like, yeah, it's the start of a new season. For me, it's like, yes, it's the end of the last one. It was so bad. So, yeah.
I honestly don't know. It's like, I guess, I think I said this yesterday or the day before. I'm like, I guess it's a good sign that we have hope coming into this season. Like maybe not as much hope as we did at the beginning of last year, but we've learned some things. But I think that, you know, I was on Sportsnet a couple days ago and they were asking me, Matt Marchese was asking me, is it possible to get any worse than last season? And I said, I surely hope not, because I don't think we can handle this again.
Yes.
But I think that, you know, there is, you know, just law of averages regressing or progressing to the mean, all of those things. This is going to be a better year. I think it has to be. I'm manifesting it. Is it going to end in playoffs? That I don't know. But I think this is going to be a more fun season to watch.
Yes. And you know what? That counts. That is something that I think all Predators fans would agree on. Let's at least have some fun hockey to watch. Last season, not a lot of fun hockey. Speaking of fun, just want to let everybody know all of the fun kicks off at Bridgestone Arena this afternoon at 4 p.m. They have the Gold Walk. Oh, that's right. We fancy here in Nashville where the players do they walk a gold carpet and greet fans and all that kind of stuff. So that is going to be kicking off at 4 p.m. Puck drops at 7 p.m. at Bridgestone Arena. This game is against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I just want to encourage our listeners to go check out Locked On Blue Jackets with Jay Foster, who is one of our great friends on the show, to get their perspective on this game tonight. But Columbus is not a team, Emma, that I think recently you'd be like, oh, I don't know if we can beat them. But Columbus is a little bit of an intriguing team this season, and it's a team that in a lot of ways, like Nashville, is getting ready to prove that their past season was the real deal and not a fluke. And they're kind of on to prove what's real and what's not this season. It's going to be really interesting to watch them.
Yeah, you know, I think that Columbus is a team that to me is a little bit like Utah. They were so close last season and you could see it. But now they got to finish putting it together and show that last season was the real deal. I mean, a big part of last year was Zach Werenski having a career year. He was second in scoring among all defensemen behind only Cale Makar. He was a Norris finalist. I mean, can we expect that level of production from him again? Probably not, considering he's only done it once. But I mean, hopefully the rest of the team will kind of make up for that in some way. But the biggest question I think with with Columbus is goaltending. And
Yes.
it's like, is Jet Greaves the real deal? They're putting a lot on this 23, 24-year-old shoulders that he hasn't necessarily shown he can handle yet. Not saying he definitely can't, but we just don't know. They've got some questions on their roster for sure, but I think that hopefully with, confidence that they built last year that, they might be able to take that next step. I mean, if you think about it, they fell short of the playoffs by 2 points last
2
year.
points, you all. I wonder if that's more painful. It's not more painful than what Predators fans. Never mind.
We don't compare trauma here, Anne.
That's true. That's my bad. We shouldn't compare trauma. Yeah, but that had to be really hard because they ended the season. I think they ended the season on like a 6-game win streak. Like they were so close. They were so close. When I look at the Columbus Blue Jackets this season and I look at their roster, it makes me think a lot of this is what Barry Trotz wants the Predators to look like in 2 or 3 seasons. You look at last season, their top scorers were relatively young, 25, 20, 22. Zach Werenski is 28, but he is a very spry 28. Their top players are younger, and then the holes are filled in with some of these, experienced veterans. And I think that's the transition that Barry Trotz has been talking about and that we're starting to maybe see come to some sort of fruition this season. But it worked for Columbus last year. Like their young players, took that next step. And I agree with you. You have to say, okay, you took that next step last season. Are they going to be able to pick up where they left off and take it a step further? That's the question for a team like Columbus that relies on young players at this point.
Yeah. And I think, there's a bit of an emotional element too for Columbus with the year they had last year, of course, starting off with the awful tragedy that it did with Johnny Gaudreau. And, there was an element of that, kind of rallying around one another. Not saying that that's the only reason that they, made it as far as they did. But I think that, it's like, can they sort of replicate that same emotional charge behind it? Looking at Columbus, I do think that they're close. Can I just say, because I love drama that doesn't involve me,
Bring it.
I'm a little excited for the welcome back Dante Fabro video that they do. I think that's gonna be fun.
I mean, you know what he's going to do? He's going to turn around and not look at Fang Vision because you put him on waivers, you all. Barry Trotz, you put him on. And in case you were wondering where Fabro is going to play, he's going to play with Norris Trophy nominee Zach Werenski on the top pairing, sort of like how he could have played on a top pairing with another Norris caliber defenseman, Roman Yossi. But no, he'll be in the other uniform. So I have feelings about this still.
Yeah, I do too. And I usually don't get mad about, or I don't stay mad about things like trades or waivers or signings. I can be like, well, that was dumb. And then I usually move on. But this one just kind of sticks with me for some reason.
Yes.
I don't know. It just like if they had traded him for, maybe an asset that I didn't think was worth it. Like, I don't know. If they had traded Dante Fabro for like a 4th round pick in the draft, that's one where I'd be like, well, that's dumb. And then I'd get over it. But the waivers, man, like that just.
Yeah. The only upside to the Luke Evangelista contract drama is that it just might have overshadowed the Dante Fabro on waivers mistake or drama, I think you're right. I think that's going to be very, very interesting. And look, Dante Fabro has been very honest about the fact that he loves it in Columbus. He
He
loves it
signed
there.
an extension there.
He sure did. He did not want to go anywhere else. So Dante Fabro is going to be living his best life. The Nashville Predators are going to be trying to get a win over Fabro and his new teammates. Coming up, we are going to talk about keys to this game. What does Nashville really have to do to come away with that opening night win? Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You're going to love how FanDuel gives you so many different ways to play. You can build those same game parlays, try some player props, or follow the live lines during games. It's going to make watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you are a casual fan or you love diving into all those advanced statistics, FanDuel is going to make your game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, Emma, tonight, Predators opening the 2025-26 season at home against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And like we were just talking about, there is nothing about this game that is a slam dunk for the Nashville Predators. So when you look at this game, what will you be watching for? And what is going to give Nashville that little boost they need to get back in the win column and to get a win over, a very intriguing team like Columbus?
Well, it's not a short list, Ann. I think there's a lot of things they're going to need to do
For
that we did
real.
not see from them last year. Let me try to narrow it down. There's a little bit of that intangible element to it of like you need to see the chemistry that you
Mhm.
didn't see last year. You don't really have the excuse for that anymore because you don't,
Yeah.
these guys aren't new anymore. But I think overall it's going to be little things like play fundamentally sound hockey. Be defensively responsible. Take care of the puck. Stay
Mhm.
out of the freaking penalty box. And don't commit so many turnovers, especially in the defensive zone. I mean, there's just like little things that they need to clean up. None of it's earth-shattering. It's not like it all hinges on one guy or one thing happening. I mean, it's all like very basic fundamental stuff here that
Mhm.
I think they need to do that they just did not execute cleanly last year at all.
Yeah. You talk about exiting the defensive zone. That was something that really was not great for the Nashville Predators last season. They were close to the top of the league in defensive zone turnovers. We saw a little bit of that in the preseason too, but that is something that Andrew Brunette has really been working on in training camp. I believe that's one of the tweaks that they have talked about to this system is they have really changed the way that they're going to try to get the puck out of the defensive zone. And so I do think that's going to be hugely important. And like you said, this is not earth shattering. This is executing the basics very, very well. And a win for Nashville doesn't hinge on anything but executing the basics very well. And that's what they need to do to get a win. That's what they also need to do, I think, to get some confidence back. Let's show ourselves that we can play 60 minutes of really good hockey, because last season they would play 55 minutes of good hockey, and those 5 minutes would absolutely take the game. So, let's see some consistency. You mentioned earlier goaltending. I think goaltending could be a difference in this game. And you talked about Jet Greaves possibly getting the start. And of course, they have Elvis Merzlikins, who not so much for Elvis in Columbus. He really struggled last season. He had an 892 save percentage, 3.18 goals allowed. So it was a tough season for him. And that is one of those areas where if UC Saros gets the defensive support in front of him, I think Nashville could get the edge. And that may be one of those things that gives Nashville the ability to win this game. UC Saros, although it doesn't rest all in him, but UC Saros could be this could be a game stealing night for UC Saros because I don't know that goaltending is quite equal in these situations.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that's the one position where Nashville has a clear advantage. Not saying that Columbus has a clear advantage everywhere else, but I just think that that's the one. Like you said, it's not particularly close.
Mhm.
The goaltending for Nashville, it's better, and I think that, like you said, could be a game stealing moment for UC Saros. I think that it'll be good. Like you talked about building confidence, it's going to be important for this whole team, but I think especially for UC Saros. I don't
Mhm.
think he doesn't rattle, he doesn't flap easily.
Mm.
We saw him flap quite a bit last year, and
Yeah.
even just seeing him getting emotional and going and yelling at officials, it's like, is he okay? Like, no, I mean, this is not what we usually see from him. So I think better to just get a good start. And remember, we didn't even see UC Saros in
No.
the opener last season. It was Scott Wedgwood, who,
Yeah.
by the way, also played in Colorado's opener on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday. So,
Tuesday. We
yeah,
remember him fondly, briefly, but fondly. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I think goaltending is going to be interesting. We do know that Brady Martin is going to be making his NHL debut tonight. Now, if you had told me 2 days after the draft that Brady Martin was going to be making his NHL debut on opening night, I would have thought you were drinking. But due to circumstances, Brady Martin is making his NHL debut, going to get that rookie lap and then just get right to work. I am very interested to watch Brady Martin tonight. He has looked very good in the preseason. He is also blessed to have Philip Forsberg on one side and Ryan O'Reilly on the other. And you know that offensively and defensively, these two guys can cover a multitude of sins. But when you think about Brady Martin's first NHL game, what are you going to look for from him specifically tonight?
I think I'm just gonna look for how he looks between two like very talented veterans. I think I'm going to, let me actually start with what I'm not looking for. I am
Mhm.
not looking for Brady Martin to look ready to be on an NHL roster because I truly believe he's here for his little tryout, 9 games or less, and then he's
Mhm.
going back to junior. That's what I believe. Now, I would love to be proven wrong,
Yeah.
and maybe he's fantastic and that becomes the best story of the season. We should not expect that from Brady Martin. And if he doesn't stay this whole year, we should not view that as a failure of a pick. What we're getting here is a better look at, like, hey, let's acknowledge we don't think he's there right now, but here's how close or how far he is. And I think, it's little things like you want to see him start to put together some consistent performances. We saw
Yes.
during the preseason wildly inconsistent one game to the next, and that's fine. I don't think that says anything about his future, his role with the team long term, about his talent overall. I think it just says he is an 18-year-old kid and he is doing his best, and that is all we can ask of him right now. But I think that you wanna see now, like, some more consistent performances, like, one game to the next, one shift to the next. You wanna see
Yes.
him looking comfortable out there, and, that doesn't mean I think he needs to go out there and score a goal in his debut. God, if he does that, they will erect a statue next to Pekka if he scores in his
100%.
debut. But I just really think the expectations on him should be tempered, and I
Mhm.
think you should be looking at not how can Brady Martin help this team this year, it's how can he help them in the next, like, 10 years.
Yes. Yeah, this is just a glimpse. So I'm with you. I'm not anticipating being on Brady Martin Hattie watch. Now, I would love y'all, it would be so fun if I was wrong. But the one thing I'm going to be watching for is what does he do away from the puck? Because that is probably one of the biggest adjustments that young players have to make when they come into the NHL. It's what do I do when I don't have the puck? Steven Stamkos I was talking with him about that, and he's like, everybody who gets to the NHL knows what to do when they have the puck. That's how they got to the NHL. It's what do you do away from the puck? And so I think it's going to be very important to watch what Brady Martin does when he doesn't have the puck. The other thing I want to watch is if Brady Martin makes a mistake, not going to be a big deal because this is his opportunity to learn, but please don't yank him. I want to see consistent line mates. I do not want to see line shuffling like we saw in the first game of the last season. Just let it roll, baby. Let it roll for Brady Martin. He's got Ryan O'Reilly. He's got Philip Forsberg. Just let it roll, Bruno. Let it roll, friend.
Let it roll. And that goes for Ozzy Weisblatt. It goes for Joachim Kimmel. It goes for Adam Wilsby. All of the young players who are going to be in here. Let it roll. If they lose the first game or if they don't do well in the first game, that there's still 81 more. We have time to tinker with this. We don't need to play with it in the first game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see how consistent the lines are. I'm very hopeful. We'll keep an eye on that during the game. And of course, we'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode when we recap the game. Coming up, this is just the first game of 82, but it is an important game. Emma and I are going to talk a little bit more about why Nashville has to get off to that hot start. Emma, we've talked about this on the podcast in the offseason, looking ahead, but ahead is here now. Is it more important for Nashville to get off to a hot start statistically, or is it more important for Nashville to get off to a hot start emotionally?
Well, it depends what you mean by statistically, I think. Like if I personally will feel much better about this team even if they're losing games. Like if statistically, if you mean like they're in the L column, I'm less concerned about that if they look we talked about how much they just could not master the fundamentals last year. If they're playing fundamentally sound hockey, they're not committing as many turnovers, they're not having issues getting out of the defensive zone, they're not having these breakdowns that lead to 2-on-1s or 2-on, breakaways for the other team. I think that all of those things, if they're defensively responsible, if they're controlling the puck, I think if they're doing all of those things and they're not winning games, I will still feel better. I won't feel great. A lot of base won't feel better, but like last year they were out of it for so long. They were out of the race for so long, and just all the life had gone from their eyes so early in the season last year. I want to see life in their eyes. So I think that there is an emotional and a statistical element to it. Now, am I going to be okay if they go 0-5 again? No. But I don't need them to go 5-0. Like 3-2, even 2-3. If the 3 that they lose are like, they were in it a little bit, because again, the way you start doesn't necessarily determine how your entire year is going to go. But for this particular team, after what happened last year, I just think back to last season, opening night, they played Dallas, and it was one of those where it was like, okay, we don't really expect to beat this team, but let's just see how we do. And I remember like Dallas went up, and then Nashville actually staged a little late mini rally. Now they fell short, but I remember leaving that game feeling pretty good about this team. Be like, you know what? That was a really freaking good team over there in Dallas, and Nashville with their backup goalie held their own, and they did okay. And I think that, if they keep playing like that, they'll win more games than they lose. Need I remind you what happened after that? I was young and naive, but I think that if I leave more games with that feeling like, hey, they lost, but like they played the right way, they did all the right things, then I'm not going to be as upset about it.
Yeah. I am with you. You mentioned kind of just the feeling in the locker room when they would lose games, once they were out of the postseason race, which happened very, very early for the Predators. It was even in a close game, they would say, well, we did a lot of things well. We just sort of didn't do one or two plays led to, but there was no energy behind that. There was no, but we can fix that and bounce back. There was none of that. And even if the Predators lose tonight against Columbus, I want to know that we're going to go into the locker room afterward and they're going to say, we lost this game because of a couple of plays, and know that they still have that fire of, but we are going after the playoffs, because that was taken from them, or they gave it up so early last season. So I do think the emotional component, it's hard to gauge, but I think it's really important. Statistically, I went back and looked. Of course, we all remember last season when they started out 0-5, baby, 0-5. 10 games in last season, they were 3-6-1. 20 games in, they were 6-11-3. Okay. In the 2023-24 season, where they ended up playing Vancouver in the first round of the playoffs, they were 2-3 after 5 games, 4-6 after 10 games, and they were an even 10-10 at 20 games. But you will recall that they had that 18-game point streak at the end to come back into it. And so I think for Nashville, while that was so stinking much fun, I think last season shook them out of that. We have the magic. And I think what they need to focus on tonight is not having the magic. They need to focus on, in these first 20 games, doing the fundamentals well and almost not focusing on the results. And I think the results will hopefully come if they can take something away and build on it. It's going to be so interesting to watch this team tonight, Emma, and to see how they take the ice, how they play, and how they are after whatever the outcome is. I think there is going to be a lot of tone that's set tonight, regardless of win or loss for this Predators team. It's a big night for Nashville.
I think tone is going to be set in more ways than one. To your point, I think it's going to be, emotional. There is going to be a statistical element to it. I mean, it's a results driven business at the end of the day. But then you also, talking about tone, I mean, we're going to be watching the veterans to see how they look after last year, because they're the ones who fell short of all the expectations last year. Then you've got these young kids, and you've got Willsby, you've got Kimmel, you've got Weisblatt, and now Martin too. Like, again, even though you're not looking at a player like Martin saying, oh, how can he help my team right now? Or at least you shouldn't be. I think that it's still, you're looking at those players. How do they fit into the fold? Does their youthful energy spark something in these veterans now? Like, there's so much at stake here. I think you do kind of feel, at least I have, just from the time that I've been around this team during the preseason, the energy does seem different. It seems like the youth is it's palpable. The energy is there,
Yes.
and that sort of hunger is there. And, I think it's good that they've got an influx of people who were not on the roster last season.
Yes.
Because if it was an entire team full of people who were here for all 84 years of last season, then, I mean, you might as well just already count them out of it, because it is so hard to get out of that hole, like to dig out of that hole by yourself. Even if you've gotten yourself into it, you still need help getting out of it. And I'm not saying that Joachim Kimmel is going to go put the team on his back and carry them to the playoffs, but I'm saying that his, having the presence, having the influx of the youth there, and actually prioritizing the youth, not pulling a Tommy Novak. Granted, we always kind of lump him in with the youth, but he really wasn't that young. He was like 27. But the point is that, you're not going to hopefully see, the coaching staff immediately yank young players, when they don't, when they don't do well on one shift. And you're going to see a little bit more talking, working together. You're going to be seeing, you've got two different kind of sets of motivations here. You've got the old guys who are pissed off because last year went so horribly, and they want to prove that that's not the real them. And then you've got the young guys who are motivated because they're fighting to stay here in the NHL. So I think that there's that blend, hopefully, should, God willing, it should be better. It should be better than last year.
Come
Please.
on. Come on.
My loins are girded regardless, but still, it's got to be a little bit better.
It's got to be better. I do think you hit the nail on the head with the combination of where the veterans are at coming into the season, where these young players are at. And of course, like we mentioned, Brady Martin could be taking that rookie lap. And there is always something special for every single player on the team when they have a rookie making their debut in the NHL. And this is going to be a home game in Nashville in front of their own fans. There's a lot of excitement. And I think if the Predators can channel that and focus, like you said earlier, it's about focusing on the fundamentals against a team that I think will be a good mirror for Nashville. This is going to be a game, even though it's the first game of the season. And of course, there's going to be more growth and all of that as we go along. This is a game that is going to tell you something about Nashville. So it's going to matter tonight how they do. Of course, Emma and I are going to be at the game. And then tomorrow we are going to bring you a recap of what we see at the game. That'll include, of course, our one word to describe the game. We're going to break down everything that happened and talk about the performances. So make sure you join us here again tomorrow for that game recap. Emma, before we wrap it up, take our pregame naps and grab a grilled cheese. Let everyone know where they can find you and your work.
And maybe some pregame Tums as well. You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work over at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that is going to do it for this opening game day episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with that first game recap. We'll see you then.